See, let me tell you something. If you listen to flat earthers, they will never tell you any evidence why the earth is flat. Unlike globe earthers that prove evidence and evidence and evidence, right? And even build technology. But flat earthers, if you ask them to prove that the earth is flat, what they will start doing is to start questioning why it's a globe. Do you understand? They will say, why can't we see the curvature? No, tell us your own evidence why it is flat. For instance, about 3,000 years ago, a Greek philosopher, a Greek mathematician was the first to prove that the earth is round. Some people knew before, like the Sumerians. If you see their what do you call it? Their drawings of the earth, they're the ones that came up with 60 minutes. 60 seconds make a minute, 60 minutes make an hour. They're the ones that came up with it. You understand? So these guys are ancient mathematicians. Those Tower of Babel, and them built them, those Babylonian Sumerians. So they knew the shape of the earth. Remember that King Nebuchadnezzar had astrologers with them. These guys count the stars. You know, remember the sons of Issachar. So people in the past used to know, but definitive proof, the first one, was when this guy counted 2 poles in Egypt, at different parts of Egypt. He counted one, this mathematician, at a certain time of the day, he measured the shadow of the pole and the distance. So it's like an angle. Sun is here, pole is here, and then the shadow like this. There's a distance. So, and then he went. So the first pole, at noonday, he measured the shadow, the length of the shadow of that pole, since the pole is identical size. Then he got his servant to mount a camel and travel to the other end of the city, or another city where there was an equally sized pole, and count how many steps. So this other one counted how many steps between these 2 poles and these 2 cities, and then he checked the size of the shadow there at noon time. He checked the shape of the shadow. So using these 2, he was able to calculate the curvature between those 2 poles, and then he used it to estimate the curvature around the earth. And this guy was accurate. Now that we have planes that can fly around the world, all right, many people have done voyages around the world. They have flown around the world, many people. Now that we have such planes, we have calculated it visually and it worked. You understand? So when you see a flat earther, tell them to prove to you that the earth is flat. You will notice that their first sentence is to prove why the earth is not globe. So you hear them trying to explain why the earth is not a globe, why it's not round. Forget why it's not round. Tell us why you think it's flat. What is your evidence that it is flat? Now here's the thing with flat earthers. Let's say a flat earther is standing here, and his evidence that the earth is flat is because he can walk from here to here flatly, right? It's flat to him. That's his evidence, right? Now you're not asking what is here. That is where the problem starts. Some will start coming up with different theories that they have never been here. They say there's an ice wall. If there's an ice wall, have you been there? How did you know? What's your estimation? What calculation did you do here to know that there's an ice wall here? You know, people go to these poles and all the time do experiments. If you go to YouTube, you see videos of people there, because the earth is round. Where is that my ball to? So the earth is shaped like this. So the pole here is ice. The pole here is ice. All right. Why? Because the sun is here. The rays of the sun is hitting up the center better than the poles. So it takes longer. Look at distance between here and the sun here is longer than the distance between the sun and here. Remember that the sun too is curved, it's round. So the 2 centers are hitting up better. That's why we in Africa, we are black. Africa is closer to the sun than Europe. You understand? So we are black in Africa because the sun is hitting us first before it gets here, and it's hotter here. So in Africa, if you start going closer to the equator, if you start going closer and closer to the equator, you will start seeing blacker. People in Central Africa are so black that they start looking blue because they are closer to the sun. Now people in Europe are light-skinned because now their body has to adapt to deal with the cold and the ice. You understand? So gravity is more here than here. So you need to understand that this explains why human beings are the way we are. And if you are in a place where the sun is very hot, your nose will be shaped to adapt to it. The reason our nose in West Africa is big is because we're in forest area, temperate forest area, where there are trees and vegetation, and the sun is now hot. So the air there is hot and humid. So our nose has to be big. You know, your nose is an extension of your lungs. It's like your lungs have stretched its hand to be able to absorb air from the environment. So now this nose now, it has to be wide enough so it can take enough air. You understand? To cool your lungs from the heat. Now, the nose of people in Middle East, where the sun is, there is desert there. That place is hot and dry. Their nose is curved like this. Their nose is not straight. It's curved like this. If you look at those Saudi Arabians, Qatar, UAE, if you look at their nose, it's curved, right? The nose is trying to filter the dust as long as possible before it passes it to the lungs. If you look at Europeans, their noses are tiny, like this. Why? Their nose is trying to pick little air so that it doesn't pass the cold into the lungs, so that the lungs doesn't freeze. You as a West African or Central African, or even Southern African, most Southern Africans simply migrated from Central Africa in recent times, right? If you go to Europe, if code do you waiting good. You understand? If you go to Europe, if code do, or Russia, if code barb you for Russia, you will be like this beside the light-skinned guy, and they will not feel it. You understand? They will not feel it. They will feel like this is a normal day. You'll be dying. There was a Ghanaian, I've forgotten his name, that was sent to Europe for a footballer. The moment the plane landed, the guy fell sick. They have signed him to resume the club. He couldn't resume for 3 weeks. The guy was in critical condition in the hospital. He was about to die. They said, let's just send him back to Ghana. You understand? The moment the plane landed in Ghana, he recovered immediately. There was no treatment. Could mama the guy, you know? So as a black man, if you're in those countries where it's cold, you need to know that your body is not handling cold well. Your body was built for heat. You understand? So your body is not handling cold well. So look at the guy's name. His name, he was sent to Sweden and he quit and returned to Sierra Leone. His name is Musa Noah Kamara. So go and Google it. All right, Google his name and read more about how he quit. That's his picture, Musa Noah Kamara. So go and Google his name. And he couldn't survive in Sweden. I think he plays for their national team now.